What role do nation-state actors play in the likelihood of a cyber pandemic compared to, say, just independent hackers, 14-year-olds in their underwear in their parents' basement? I mean, how much of this is really serious from big-time hackers, and how much of it is just people trying to break into things just to see if they can do it?
Yeah, Pat, thanks again for having me on. The nation-state element is really where I think we shift into the strategic risk end of the spectrum, where, you know, you look at North Korea. North Korea effectively finances all of their activities through cybercrime. And so a strategic risk where the cyber attack might be something that is a part of a bigger goal, right? It's a means to an end. They're often a lot more sophisticated. We call them script kiddies. So the kid who's on the internet finds something, he downloads it, he just tries it out, doesn't know what he's really doing, technically speaking. Probably knows what he's doing activity-wise, but not really too much of a threat in terms of, you know, the broad cascading effects. But the nation-state actor, they tend to be very sophisticated, coordinated. They are financed. They are operating under local legal cover, so maybe illegal what they're doing in the United States or according to international treaty. But if you're in certain jurisdictions around the world where the rule of law is not as it is here in America, they kind of operate with impunity. And then really kind of the hard part is cost of attribution and response. So let's say that we do identify that a nation-state actor is executing a cyber attack that results in this cyber pandemic. Well, if you've identified it's a nation-state, well, now you're talking nation-state to nation-state responses. Well, what does that sound like, right? That sounds like conflict. And so
war.
It's very difficult it's very difficult. It's very difficult when you get that level because they're very persistent. They're very willing. They're coordinated, and it just gets hard to, you know, the kid in the basement, FBI knocks on the door, mom and dad, he's grounded for a month. When it's adversaries around the world, you don't exactly get to just show up and say, stop doing that.
How are we doing coordination-wise? You know, I know, again, you're specifically Oklahoma, but how are we doing coordination-wise with other states and other nations in your estimation?
Well, see, I think this is one of the great things about a generation of industry professionals now working together is that we recognize we need to coordinate, as you say. I think the problem is who we're coordinating with. So here in the state of Oklahoma, local municipalities, county governments, state agencies, and authorities, we all have the same interests. We all want to make sure that Oklahoma is protected and secure. That's very easy. One legal framework that we're working under is all Oklahoma law, all U.S. law. The resources question, that's always something that you can work with. But when you start talking about, Oklahoma to other states, the United States to other states, those organizational elements start to break down a little bit. So it's kind of a function, unfortunately, of like everything else with coordination is, can you get the right people in the room, identify common interests, unite around a single legal framework, regulatory framework.
Do you see that happening?
And are we all? I think there are people who are trying, and I will hope them the best.
How hard is it to identify whether it's a nation state or not? And how do you prove that? Can you prove it pretty conclusively?
Attribution is very, very difficult. Unfortunately, nobody tends to send a postcard with their name and address along with their cyber incident. So this is where the very sophisticated, very intelligent cyber operators in the private sector who have been studying patterns of behavior over years, even decades, do their best to identify where things come from. But again, speaking back to the problem of attribution, it can be very difficult. The digital fingerprints, you can modify, you can mask, you can obscure. It is a very difficult challenge.
Yeah, Elon just said the attack on X, was it last week or the week before, came from Ukraine. I mean, that's got to be a tough thing to prove. And then what do you do about it if it turns out to be true? That's a hard one.
Yeah, and the problem is that the attack may have originated in Ukraine, but it could have been a follow-on, right? It could have been a launching point from somewhere else. So it gets very, very difficult, very, very convoluted. The attack could have been from Ukrainian sources. It could have been from sources outside of Ukraine trying to make it look like Ukraine was doing it. It could have been Ukrainian, a Ukrainian element using external things to then hack themselves. Right? It gets very
little sticky
and conspiracy.
A little sticky, and then of course, if that leads to war, that's another sort of sticky issue there.